Hi there and welcome to Kamikazi, one of the videos in our series about the power and conflict poems by AQA. This poem was written in 2013 by Beatrice Garland, and by the end of this video you should have a good idea of what it's about and three key quotations represented by these key images in front of you. So what happens in Kamikazi? Well, a woman tells the story of her father, who's a Japanese soldier in World War II, who sets off on a suicide mission to fly a plane into an enemy boat. On his way, he remembers how he used to wait for his own father's fishing boat to return from the sea. He decides not to complete the mission because of this memory from his childhood. And then when he returns, his family are so ashamed that he didn't go through with it, they no longer talk to him, and the whole community turns their backs on him. It's almost as if he's dead. So now a quick reading of Kamikazi. Her father embarked at sunrise, with a flask of water, a samurai sword in the cockpit, a shaven head, full of powerful incantations, and enough fuel for a one-way journey into history. But halfway there, she thought, recounting it later to her children, he must have looked far down at the little fishing boat strung out like bunting on a cream-blue translucent sea, and beneath then, arcing in sways like a huge flag, waved first one way then the other in a figure of 8, the dark shoals of fishes flashing silver as their bellies swiveled towards the sun, and remembered how he and his brothers waiting on the shore built cairns of pearl-grey pebbles to see who's withstood longest the turbulent inrush of breakers, bringing their father's boat safe, yes, grandfather's boat, safe to the shore. Salt-sodden, awash with cloud-marked mackerel, black crabs, feathery prawns, the loose silver of whitebait, and once a tuna, the dark prince, muscular, dangerous. And though he came back, my mother never spoke again in his presence, nor did she meet his eyes, and the neighbours too, they treated him as though he no longer existed. Only we children still chattered and laughed, till gradually we too learned to be silent, to live as though he had never returned, that this was no longer the father we loved, and sometimes, she said, he must have wondered which had been the better way to die. Here are some key words that you might want to think of when you're talking about this poem and writing about it. Kamikazi, first of all. A Japanese pilot in the Second World War was a kamikaze pilot if they would deliberately crash their plane into an enemy target and die. So this is about a kamikaze pilot. Patriotic duty is something a person who loves their country should do. It's their duty. Patriotic is loving your country. So obviously this pilot sets out thinking that killing the enemy is his patriotic duty. Taboo is something that society thinks is not acceptable and usually doesn't talk about. In some societies, women being educated is taboo. Something that people don't talk about and don't think is acceptable. In ours, of course, it is. So the idea of coming back from a suicide mission and not going through with it is clearly taboo in this poem. It leaves him with psychological scars. That is, it's a very traumatic event, and it has a big effect on his mind, like a scar, but in his mind. It stays with him. And he suffers a metaphorical death. That is, he's still alive, but a key part of him has died. He's not the same person anymore. So what you could do now is pause the video here and write a sentence with each of these things in about how they refer to kamikaze. The first one's been done for you. The poem is about a kamikaze pilot who sets off to crash his plane into an enemy ship. Okay, so we're now going to look at some key quotations here. The first one, her father embarked at sunrise. So the verb embark means to set out, but it sounds like the start of a heroic adventure. So this is very much what he thought he was doing. It's his patriotic duty to embark on this adventure. Sunrise makes us think of the Japanese flag. Japan is often called the land of the rising sun. He thinks it's his patriotic duty to represent that flag in this first line of the poem. And sunrise could be a symbol of a new life as well. The sun coming up on his new life as a hero. He'll be remembered as a hero. So very optimistic start to the poem. But half, it says, a one-way journey into history, but halfway there. Here there is enjambment. There is no punctuation separating these lines, and so that could show what a terrible silence and loneliness there is as he wonders when he's halfway there. Should I complete my mission? Shouldn't I? The conjunction but starts the next stanza, the next verse, and when you start with but, of course something has changed. It's a signal that something big has changed for him. And of course in a poem you call the big change a Volta, a turning point. He's decided to live. This is the Volta of the poem, the place where everything changes. Bringing their father's boat, I'm sorry you can't quite see that there, bringing their father's boat safe to shore. Here we have repetition of safe, which obviously shows how worried he is about his grandfather's safety when he's a boy. Will his grandfather get safe? Will he be safe? The boat could be a symbol of safety. Of course, in a flood, a boat is a safe place. And this implies that he started to think how his actions, at this point in the poem, he's flying above the sea, thinking about his grandfather's boat, and he started to think that actions in war have consequences. They affect future generations. He will affect his children just like his grandfather's death would have affected him. Which had been the better way to die? The poem ends with a question. It addresses the reader and it prompts us to think, well, which would have been the better way to die? It doesn't give us the answer. We have to think about that ourselves. Would it have been better to die a hero and kill the enemy, which in another way is wrong, of course, or would it have been better to come home like this and do the right thing but be ignored by your family and your culture? Obviously there's no right answer here for this man. The adjective better is a bit uncomfortable when we talk about death, and it shows how uncomfortable the whole situation is. We don't tend to talk about death being better. And of course what he's suffered is a metaphorical death. He's still alive, but people treat him like he's dead. So for revision cards I would relate these quotes to these images and try and learn them and things to say about them. If you're gunning for some higher grades, a quote you might want to look at is this one, the Dark Prince, muscular and dangerous. So the tuna, excuse my spelling mistake here, could be a symbol as well. It's a symbol of death, of the presence of death in nature. It's muscular, it's dangerous, it's always there. It could also symbolise the war. Muscular and dangerous are adjectives that could apply to a stereotypical soldier like this man wanted to be. On a larger scale, we could even say that perhaps this tuna, this prince of dark desires, represents man's instinct to go to war, the darkest desire of all. The same things that are beautiful in nature, like the beautiful fish, are also the things that drive us to destroy it. It shows that conflict is part of man's nature. I hope that was helpful, and please do look at the other poems in this series.